In this video, we're going to talk about ADHD and rejection-sensitive dysphoria and what you can do about it. Welcome back, everybody. Dr. LeGrand here. If you're new here, then subscribe to the channel because we talk everything about ADHD. So let's talk about rejection-sensitive dysphoria and how it's really associated with ADHD and what you can specifically do about it. Now, this is a term that I became more familiar with because they didn't talk about this in medical school because it's not in the DSM-5. It's not an official diagnosis. It's something that is being looked at more and more because we're finding that, people with ADHD tend to have more of this rejection-sensitive dysphoria. Now, what is rejection-sensitive dysphoria? Well, like I said, it's more associated with people with ADHD, and it's typically because we have a hard time really dealing with rejection. We tend to be a lot more hypersensitive, and especially dealing with criticism or people being mean to us, we tend to actually not just feel it, but also sometimes it can feel painful to us. Because of having rejection, we tend to be more sensitive and more hyper emotional to things. And currently looking at this term, I had to kind of reflect back with my experiences, especially having ADHD and growing up with it. I was a more sensitive kid. My parents always told me, oh, you're just really sensitive, or, other siblings would tell me, yeah, I'm really just a sensitive, emotional person, and really didn't understand exactly why. But now it kind of makes a lot more sense that, having ADHD and being very sensitive kind of makes a lot more sense. And when I would actually try to make friends or, play in play groups, and there would be some kid that was really mean to me and I had no idea, I would start bawling and crying. And sometimes I would leave and the other room, or even like at scouts, sometimes if there was a kid that was really mean to me, and I would get really frustrated and have an outburst and go deep into the woods, and the leaders would have to try to go find me. And I really didn't understand it at the time, but now reading this term and learning more about rejection-sensitive dysphoria, it makes all sense of, oh, no wonder, this is why I was having these situations, is that I had a hard time dealing with someone who was rejecting me, even though I wanted to be their friends, or dealing with criticism. So even when I had teachers that told me that I sucked, like when I had a teacher that told me that I sucked at science and shouldn't go in the medical profession. Well, I cried and had outbursts and got really upset and had a hard time dealing with that. But there's definitely things that really helped me, especially over the years, deal with this more. And especially in my upbringing, I had wonderful parents, I had great mentors that looked at me in a different way and helped me and gave me tips that I want to share with you. And these are 5 tips that have helped me over the years, that I feel like I have a better handle with it. Now, I'm not perfect at it, but it definitely has helped me over the years. So let's go over each one. The very first tip that helped me with my ADHD and dealing with rejection sensitivity is by combating rejection with reinforcing strengths that I do have. Now, what this would be is anytime I dealt with a rejection, or if I had a teacher that told me, I suck at this, or I have a friend or someone who I wanted to be friends with rejected me and, told me that I was not fun to be around with, or I was just weird, whatever it was. My parents did a very good job at doing this. When I would go cry to them, they would reinforce the great qualities that I did have, and they would reinforce the strengths I did have, and that I can do better. And especially with the teacher, for example, who told me I sucked at chemistry and I shouldn't become a medical doctor. Well, my mom was there to comfort me and tell me the strengths that I did have. And guess what? I just retook the class with a different teacher and I got an A because it was reinforcing strengths. Now, I had my mom to be able to help me, which was an amazing thing to have a parent that can reinforce those. And so if you are here listening to this and you have a child with ADHD, this is so critical to reinforce those strengths that they do have, that that your child has. Now, as an adult, this is something I have to do still continuously and can't always rely on my mom. I'm an adult now, I have kids, I'm married. So definitely, a lot of times that might be my wife that might reinforce strengths for me. So sometimes finding others that know you so well that can reinforce those strengths, but sometimes you can really do it for yourself, is when you do get rejection, and it really hurts when someone has rejected you and you're really sensitive and really emotional, is try to think, okay, is it true? Is it absolutely true of what they're saying? And if it's not, if you think like, okay, it isn't 100% true, what are some strengths that I do have? How are I'm actually good at these qualities when they are just misunderstanding me? Which leads into my second tip, is that remembering that all emotions are valid. So whatever you're feeling, even though that us people with ADHD, we tend to be hypersensitive and very emotional, is that the emotions that we're feeling are valid. They're just a lot more extreme than the neurotypical person. We're feeling it, 5-10 times more than the neurotypical person. So yes, we might cry more, we might go crawl in a corner and feel depressed or feel very anxious because we feel all these emotions. And it can be at a point where sometimes we actually feel it and it ends up hurting. It actually is painful versus just feeling the emotion. And when we understand, okay, these emotions are valid and they do mean something, but when you have to kind of like think backwards and think, okay, why am I feeling this way? And yes, it's valid, but maybe that person had a bad day, right? So you could try to make these emotional points maybe valid, where you have to realize, okay, maybe that person had a bad day and that's why they said those things, or they really didn't mean that. You have to realize that there is circumstances, there's always two sides of the coin, there's always different perspectives. And when we start doing that and realizing, okay, yes, it is valid that I'm feeling these emotions, but at the same time, understanding that these triggers, these emotions happen because of what we perceived, but also it might be not the actual correct perception. The third thing, when we are going through these emotions, and whether that's being rejected or just feeling an emotion because of what's happening in the situation, is we need to realize, especially kids, they're going to have outbursts. And this is very common. It's something I experienced too, is I would have outbursts and I would leave the play group and go off in the woods and get lost and become really emotional and uncontrollable emotion. And a good thing, especially as adults, to practice is to have your space. When you're starting to feel really emotional, is just leave the room and realize, okay, I just need to go cry this out. I need to have some space instead of outbursting in front of people, especially with kids, and maybe even training your kids that when they are feeling all this emotion bottled up, is to go and have some space somewhere where you can process your emotion and actually accept that it's okay to have that emotion, especially you parents teaching your kids having that emotion, but needing your space as well. When I grew up with 9 kids, and having our attention with our parents, is limited. Siblings fight a lot. And of course, the ones that had ADHD tend to be a little bit more emotional and didn't have their time and had their outbursts. And we had to have our space, especially me growing up. I have to have my space. And especially when there's too much emotion going on, I don't like confrontation. I've realized that more and more as I get older, that I do not like confrontation. Even though growing up as a kid, I argued all the time, but I'm realizing more and more, I do not like those situations. And sometimes either I won't engage or I just will leave the situation. The fourth thing, and this I know is going to be sensitive to say this, but you need to stop taking it personal. Just because we have ADHD, and yes, we have this rejection sensitivity dysphoria, that we're more hypersensitive and more have an issue with emotional dysregulation issues, is we can't personally just take it always personal, because it still can be looked at from a different perspective. And when we take everything personal, it prevents us from really progressing. It prevents us from also being able to have good relationships with others, and realizing that we can't take everything that everybody says personal, because if we constantly do that, we're going to be very unhappy individuals. And this is what I had to learn over the years, because as I was getting older and older, I realized that, we live in a society where we're people pleasers. We want to please people. So that's the other thing that's an issue, is when we're wanting to please people all the time, guess what? We don't end up being happy. And also when we're trying to please everybody, guess what? All the people that we have a relationship with aren't happy with us, because you can't please everybody. And I had to realize this, throughout the years, and I'm still learning more about it, but I feel like I've gotten better, where I've come to the point to not really care what other people think. People will say whatever they want in the comment section. They'll say the meanest things, and it's like, who cares? They probably had a bad day and they had to spurt it out on social media. So social media, becomes a really big problem too, especially with ADHD, because when we have these high emotions and someone left a mean comment or said something mean, we take it too personal. And we have to realize we don't know their circumstance. We don't know what's going on. And so you have to realize, what? Who cares? Who cares what they said? Because if we start going down that rabbit hole of always, what do other people think, we're not going to be happy. You have to stop thinking what other people think and what is most important to you. And the ones that are closest to you, those are who you should care about. And that's usually going to be your family and your really close friends. But for other people, who cares what they think? The fifth thing that I think was really helpful for me is, especially since my challenges were mostly in academic and even early on, building good friendships, is having good affirmations. Building good affirmations that are strong affirmations that you get in front of a mirror and say you are smart, you're intelligent, you're a genius, you are clever, you're kind, you're loving. I want you to start doing these things that you feel like you don't have. I want you to go in front of the mirror and start saying these things. These are something that I do on a regular basis, especially before I get in front of a camera. Sometimes I'll be like, I'm a genius, got this. Or something that I might be scared of having to do, I get in front of a mirror and start doing that. And especially if you have had rejection, recent rejection, that has put you in a very extreme emotional state, is to have those affirmations, get in front of a mirror, and talking out loud, because this is a very powerful tool that can change your mindset in a way over time. It isn't just like a magic pill, but over time, doing these practices really help regulate your emotions more versus having to be all over the place when it comes to your emotions with ADHD. Of course, when it comes to ADHD, emotions isn't the only issue that we deal with. We deal with a lot of different challenges, and you're probably wondering what other things that you can be doing, especially if medications aren't working out for you and you're trying to look for natural ways to be able to help address your ADHD. Well, I have a free ADHD guide in the description below that goes over all the labs that you should be looking at if you have ADHD, what other types of foods to implement, what foods to avoid, what supplements to implement, and nutrients and vitamins. All of that is in the description below. You can download that free guide in the description below. Until next time, this is Dr. Legrand signing out. Thanks. Bye.